Let's see. All right. Hey, team. Oh my goodness. Welcome to a slightly later Wednesday night stream, but it's later for a good reason. We have Dr. Dan here from Creation Myths. Hi, Dan. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here. It's always so much fun and occasionally horrifying to be here with you talking about pseudoscience. And I feel like that's what we're going to get tonight. So, for everyone who's watching, we're starting late because I have small children and I can't start until they're asleep. So that's why we're. And thank you, Maddie, for adjusting to accommodate.
Oh, I'm super happy. And I'm really happy to have somebody here that knows things about the squishy science, which is what I refer to all biology.
Fair.
Yeah. So you're here because we are going to be reacting to the one that won the poll, the Twitter poll, which, by the way, I couldn't put the full title of these videos into the Twitter poll because the titles are too long. But this is a sampling of what we were voting on, right? Satanic goal behind the COVID pandemic. Team, that's what won the poll, so that's what we'll be reacting to. I'm real excited. I like this. The tactics used to put fear into the people to get the shot, right? That's a lot of words. Dr. Tenpenny on COVID and the myth of the masks. Like
the myth of math.
The myth of the mask. There is some good alliteration in here, and I kind of appreciate that. You know,
I don't like how we lost the dates partway through though. We lost the convention of dating them.
That is weird.
We should go back and fix those because that's jarring.
Yeah. But
fabricated concept. This is man.
Right. It's a thing. And hey, David P. Neff, thanks for coming to hang out. Okay. So this is the woman who we're going to be talking about this evening, reacting to. And I think I'd like to let you guys know a little bit about Dr. Tenpenny. One, team, she is actually a doctor, like a real medical doctor, which is pretty darn scary. That frightens me. She's also completely banned off YouTube and like most, if not all, social media. Okay, so she is a doctor of it's osteopathic medicine, so a DO instead of an MD. Fundamentally, those are the same thing. You go to med school, you go to residency, like those are the same thing. The one difference between a DO and an MD is that a DO will learn something called osteopathic manual manipulation, or OMM for short. Okay, why do I bring that up? Because that's what she is board certified in. So I want to talk briefly about what OMM is. And I asked, my source on this, by the way, is my sister. She's a pediatrician. She's a board certified, real life, no joke pediatrician. She went to a DO medical school. And she uses OMM, it's a tool in the tool belt, right? And so what it does, it's a way of like, the way she described it to me was like, you know, like a chiropractor will like straighten a joint or something. But like they're like addressing bones. OMM kind of does that, but it like addresses like the muscle. So, you know, if you're, say, a pediatrician and you are, I don't know, helping out with the local high school football team and you've got some like muscle strain injuries or something, this might be a nice tool in your tool belt to pull out. If you have like a really tight muscle in your back, OMM might be a good tool in the tool belt to pull out. So that's what OMM is. And it is possible to be board certified OMM, and that is all you do. And that is what this lady is board certified in. The only thing she's board certified in is OMM. So, I mean, like, I wouldn't go to her for anything, but if I had to go to her for something, it would be because my back is sore, right? Like, and literally nothing else.
So to be clear, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What you got?
So to be clear, she's not a infectious disease person. She's not a immunologist. She's not a virologist. She's not a vaccine specialist. She's not someone who regularly deals with vaccinations like a pediatrician. She's none of these things.
She's none of those things. And in fact, in her practice, I would be shocked and amazed if she like was supposed to regularly prescribe medicine stronger than like naproxen, you know? Yeah. I was about to say I'm sure she's good at what she does, but you know what? I'm not sure of that.
Based on the titles of these videos,
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either.
I'm trying to not like I don't think OMM is a bad thing. I know there is some like real science that backs up its efficacy. So I'm not trying to say that isn't a good thing, but it's not related to vaccines whatsoever, or pandemics or epidemiology. It's unrelated. So a theme, I guess, when we do like young earth creationism stuff is like about like staying in your lane. Just because you're a doctor of geology doesn't mean you can talk about astrophysics, right? And so that's yeah.
It's a good place to start. So should we take the plunge and hit play?
I think we're going to address this comment and send Answers in Atheism some like love to Florida of Florida banning kids with vaccinations have to stay out of school for 30 days. That's a real thing.
Did you hear this story about the private school?
No, please tell me more.
Oh, so first it was I think it was, I might have the first step wrong, is that I think initially what they did is a private school. So initially what they did is they said for faculty and staff, you cannot get vaccinated. You're not allowed to. And that's not okay. You can't do that. You can't say you cannot have X medical treatment, right? As an employer, you're not allowed to do that, right? You can't do that. So the next thing, what I should qualify that statement. There are, like you can't be on like Oxy if you're also like doing heavy machinery right? There are exceptions to that, but in general,
fundamentally those restrictions come from your doctor, right?
Right. Like, that's going to be coming from both sides. Yeah.
Right.
So what the school then did is says, okay, people are getting vaccinated, yada, yada, yada. Florida has a prohibition on vaccine mandates because Florida, but individual people can obviously still get vaccinated. So what this school said is if a student is vaccinated, then the vaccinated student must quarantine for 30 days out of school so that the vaccine that person has received does not affect the other people in the school. And I want everyone to just sit with that for a minute, because the vaccine gets injected into a muscle in your body. It's not connected to your lungs, to your excretory system, to your digestive system. It is not connected to anything that would leave your body. It's a muscle in your arm. There's no way, putting aside what the vaccine is when it's in your arm,
but
it can't get out.
Let's take this to what if kid, let's not make this a child. What if a hypothetical adult was vaccinated and then they had just got the shot in that muscle tissue in your arm, and then I took a machete and I went up to them and I cut off their arm, and then I had some delicious barbecue and I was a little bit of a cannibal and I ate the muscle tissue.
And it was undercooked.
And I didn't have a delicious barbecue. I just ate it raw. In that circumstance,
the worst case scenario possible, then what might happen is you might get a little bit of those spike proteins somehow introduced into your system, and then maybe you'll gain a little bit of protection.
So short of so I guess the school is worried about the children participating in cannibalism.
Cannibalism leading to unknowing secondary vaccination?
Yeah. That's what's going to happen. All right. Well, the satanic goal behind the COVID pandemic can't be worse than that idea.
I bet it will be.
Bet it will be. All right.
I bet it is.
Okay, let's find out. I'm like nervous.
I know, me too. This is gonna get Maddie like demonetized.
I'm not. Well, actually, I bet that after this live stream, I'm going to be monetized because I'm like 100 watch hours away. Yeah. Okay. Oh no.
Did it?
Sorry, team. My internet's being a little slow.
It opened for me in a new window when I clicked it, or in a new tab.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, nope. Let's try this. Okay.
Well, that was fun, everybody. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next time.
Okay. I'm going to try. I'm going to try one thing to mess with my internet. Usually doing what I just did speeds it up. So let's make sure that I don't disappear for a second. We're still alive. We're still going. Okay. Let's try again. If this doesn't play, I'm going to be so upset.
If not, I can just share it on mine if necessary. Okay. We can just do that if we need to.
Okay. Because so I'm going to oh well, shoot, I also just realized that you guys aren't even seeing the screen that I'm seeing. So stop screen, share a new screen.
This is why live TV has producers. It's not just this one person. Could you imagine if every news program was just the anchor also producing the show at the same time?
Right. That's why like things like, I don't know, when like Twitch streamers, they're like how much money they make is released and people are all like shocked and stuff. I am not, because you know how much money it would cost to not do all of this myself.
Keeping a lot of balls in the air if you're doing it yourself. It's right. All right. It looks like it's good.
Okay, but it's just the thing is I'm getting the spinning wheel of death, which is making me nervous. Let me try a thing. Speed normal. That's. I wonder if sometime. Oh no. Okay. So there's a promo code to my pillow on this.
I've got all sorts of fun ads on here, and actually now that I've Googled Dr. Tenpenny, I'm really excited to see what kinds of things I see now. Yeah. Now that I've Googled her repeatedly, so that'll be fun.
Something really fast. Sorry, I'm wondering. I know I stopped sharing. Sorry, it's doing the thing where it won't. It's like it won't play while I'm trying to share it. So I am going to live figure that out.
It won't play while you're trying to share it. I have not experienced that.
That happens sometimes.
Would you like for me to share it? I can give that a shot.
Would you give that a shot?
I will give that a shot. Let's give it the old college try. So I'm going to share screen. I'm going to do a Chrome tab, and I'm going to share audio.
Yeah.
And it is the Satanic Gold. There it is. It's that one. So I'm going to share this. So let's see. I'm going to make this a little bit. No, I don't want to make it any bigger because there we go. So I want the screen. I want to maximize the video. And actually, maybe I can get those. I can make it a little bit bigger and then goes those ads off the screen. There we go. We don't need the ads.
We don't need the
ads. You don't need the there we go. You don't need the Mike Lindell ads. I don't think anyone needs that. The MyPillow guy. All right. So let's see if this works, everybody.
Yeah.
Do we have sound?
I have sound, but you see, it did the same thing. I can hear it.
I paused it. Yeah. I paused it.
Okay.
That was a sound check pause. Okay. Do we hear it?
Yes.
All right. This is going to be so bad. Yell when I should stop.
Okay.
Oh no.
Okay. Okay. I can figure.
Should we do just the audio? Think that'll work?
Let's try. Yeah, we can try just the audio. Okay. We can listen.
That's working.
Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, and I want to extend a warm welcome.
Loud enough? Good? Clear?
I can hear it. Okay. And Don Giovanni, I have no idea what she's hosting it on. It's as far as I can tell, a wackadoodle.
It's not
proprietary site.
YouTube, because she's banned from that and Twitter and Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
But not Instagram, notably. All right.
Welcome to everyone who is joining us here at the Tenpenny Files with Dr. T. Each week, we're going to get together to have a conversation about topics of interest and have guests to discuss things that I think you want to hear. You will find the Tenpenny Files to be an educational and inspirational time. And most importantly, I hope that you will find that it is food for your soul. We're going to start by taking a longitudinal look over the last 15 months to summarize where we have come from
longitudinal?
inside
Why are
of
we...
this pandemic.
Okay.
And
that's pandemic. Drink.
Yeah,
there it is. There you go. Cheers. She said it.
Yeah, if you guys choose to imbibe and are of age or can pretend to be of age and I don't need to know about it, then I grab a drink.
It's gonna be rough. All right.
And we're going to show in no uncertain terms that our struggle is not against human opponents, but against rulers, authorities, cosmic powers in the darkness around us, and evil spiritual forces in the heavenly realm.
Oh no! What have we found? One, I'm a little surprised you didn't say powers and principalities, because that's the catchphrase.
So first of all, what does that mean? What is powers and principalities?
It's from, I think it's from Revelations. It means the devil and his forces. But it's a weird, I think it's like from the King James translation. So that's like, it's one of those like Q in, you know what you're talking about.
I was going to say, because I haven't heard that one before, but if I listen to like Rick Santorum talk, I'd be like, I wasn't supposed to catch that, but I caught that. I know what you just said and who you just said it to. It's one of those.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I want to appreciate just how there was no like ramp up right here. This was like a drag race. This was just like we hit play and we were just pedal to the metal, shifting as fast as we are 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. We're just bam, right out of the gate.
We're gonna prove in no uncertain terms that it's from okay, when I was a kid, Satanist. Okay, when I was a kid, I went to a very conservative, private evangelical Christian school, right? I actually got a good education. That's a different conversation. But for whatever reason, one day we watched a video and I remember making fun of it. So I don't know why they made us watch this, but it was this guy warning us about what Satanists did, right? And he has this line where he goes, Satanists making candles out of babies. And that's all I can hear right now. So if I say that out loud a lot, that's just like my teenage self.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
How did this whole thing get started? They started with fear, false evidence made to appear real. And as time went on over the last 15 months, each piece of evidence that they presented that they made to appear real has been exploded.
No.
Also, who is they?
I mean,
I understand that she means the spooky, ethereal they, but like, if we're going to be critical, then who are we talking about? What specific claim are we making?
Well, I mean, there is the generic they in conspiracy theories typically means the same thing across every conspiracy theory imaginable, right?
The Satanists making candles out of babies.
You know, well, it's they, you know, the globalists
The globalists?
The globalists, right, that want to institute a new world order. If you catch my drift, that's who it always, it's always the same people. It's the people that Henry Ford warned you about.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and Ayn Rand, maybe? I don't know.
They quarantined us. They put us under house arrest.
Did they?
They then turned the myths of the mask into facts and made us believe that somehow by wearing this piece of cloth, or what we've come to call this face diaper across our face, was somehow good for us.
Can we just appreciate face diaper for a minute?
I would like to.
Can we all
face
just
diaper?
Sit with that?
And just there's so much. We're like a minute 45 in, and we're like, we've already hit. We're just stating as fact that like the myth of the mask. Well, like what is that, right? Like
it's masks work.
Masks are great.
There's been a lot of studies on that.
Yeah, like even in Weatherland, we talk about masks and things like that because we talk about aerosol pollutants and like PM 2.5. So particulate matter that's 2.5 microns in diameter. I just graded a bunch of tests in a meteorology department on that. So like,
yeah,
if you're talking about you can see it. I don't understand.
We wear them surgically for a reason. There's a reason you wear them, like doctors wear them when they do surgery, because they prevent things from getting where they shouldn't go. They work.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Well, and like, I don't know, if I was going to try to make this as basic as humanly possible, it's fundamentally like, why do you like think about if you're making rice, if you rinse your rice off before you make it, right? I use a like very thin wire mesh like sifter. That's what I put my rice in, and then I rinse it off, right? Versus like a colander, right? Because a colander will stop pasta but not rice. It's that concept. Like, or like that neither of those stops the water that gets through it, right? Like it's the size of the particle that it stops, and it does it just fine. And also, if you call it a face diaper, diapers serve a very important purpose, and it involves stopping things from getting from a child onto you, right? Same concept.
Yes.
I'm actually now fine with the concept of face diaper because maybe that explains it.
There you go.
Or possibly we could go with face condom, right? Also, that's the goal, right? We're stopping a thing from getting from me to you.
Right.
Whatever you need to call it to make that make sense.
We're now, how far are we in? Almost 2 minutes.
They then separated us. They called it social distancing, as though the virus could measure 6 feet and knew exactly how far we should stand apart. They closed businesses, they closed airports, and most importantly and most devastatingly, they closed churches. They then spied on us. They gave it a fancy name, called it contact tracing, where you were supposed to leave your phone number and the number of your friends so that they could get in contact with you if, by way, you came sick with COVID
Oh, absolutely
illness.
not. We just did that with Facebook.
Did that already.
First of all, you're doing that already. Second of all, that's like, I'm gonna like one, where in the United States is there like massive contact tracing going on other than like individual private institutions? Literally nowhere.
There's not. I mean, New Jersey has an app for exposures and contact tracing, but only a few 100,000 people signed up for it in a state of 9 million people. So
yeah. And then second of all,
and oddly enough, they didn't make you sign up for it. They didn't make you. They said, hey, here's a thing. This will help us. Right. You should do it. But they didn't go door to door and force it on you. But then people are going, I'm not signing up for these government tracking my movement sent from my iPhone on Facebook.
Right. Also, then secondarily, it's not as though they closed churches, but not mosques or temples or other places of religious expression. It's not as if they closed churches, but not also schools, right? And closing a church, right? That's not, the church is not closed, right? You're just not allowed to have more than whatever the number was, people there at once. So if you really wanted to, your church could do 30 services a day with 10 people. You know what I mean? Like the church isn't being prevented from providing services. There's nothing that would have prevented like a pastor going to an individual person's home and bringing communion. You know what I mean? Like, you could have done that. There's lots of things that you could have done. It's just like mildly inconvenient for literally everyone. No one likes this, right? But like, oh my goodness, you had to go to church virtually, like, for a few months so that everyone didn't die.
And you know, I think one of the most important points here is this is a U.S. specific thing that we're taught. Like, she's talking about the United States. Yeah. Other places in the world did do like legit lockdowns. There were places where you could go out for X number of hours per day. There were curfews. Australia, for example, is extremely strict lockdowns when they shut down a city when their cases spike. Now they're taking this a lot more seriously than the United States did. So,
and a lot fewer people died.
And look at that. It's almost like there are trade-offs here, and a bunch of people in the United States seem to be okay with more death.
Yeah. Like this actual physician. So
like
that's
this actual physician.
That's great. That's great.
Really, just a way to connect all of your friends into one place. And they called it contact tracing. And then they demanded that we be tested with fraudulent PCR tests to identify cases, which mean and continue to mean actually nothing. It's the first time ever in history that...
Let me just comment on that real fast, because the way the PCR test works, it's actually a really cool, sophisticated piece of technology. It takes the mRNA, because it's an RNA virus, so it takes the RNA of the virus. It does this thing called reverse transcription into DNA, and then it amplifies the DNA. It's a really cool process.
Oh, that's very cool.
I'm sorry?
That's very cool. Sorry,
yeah.
I understand also, just enough about DNA to understand what you just said, and that's very cool.
At some point, we should talk about how PCR works, because it seems like magic, and you definitely, for the people that have done PCR, know you do need an idol, and you do need to make the appropriate sacrifices for it to work. But putting that aside, the actual way the amplification works, it seems like magic. It's an exponential amplification of a specific DNA sequence. It's super cool. And what it means is you can get start with just a little bit of either RNA or DNA. And then depending on which process you do, your vanilla PCR or your reverse transcriptase PCR, you can amplify those to bajillions of copies to the point where you can actually detect and sequence them through other means. It's really cool. I know how cool it is because I spent way more hours and days and weeks of my life doing it in grad school over and over again to make sure that I had what I thought I had in my little tubes.
Yeah.
And like, it works. PCR is real. So when you're doing the test for PCR for is the virus there or not, like, I want to make clear for everybody, like, those are real. They work. They're not. We're just like I said at the beginning, this is just like, we're just punching that gas pedal and just, this is fake and that's fake and this is fake. And it's like, none of what she's saying is correct.
Right.
Like, none of it. Just like the baseline premises for wherever she's going with this, it's just every one of them is wrong. But like, this PCR one is particularly egregious because it's a very specific technical process. And like, literally, if you breathe on your reaction mixture wrong, it won't work. It's very sensitive to contamination, because even just a few stray like enzymes from your fingertips, obviously you have to wear gloves, few stray enzymes get in there and mess with the whole thing. So like, yeah, like, no, this is for real. It turns out the science actually works. Who'd have thunk?
Turns
out. So thanks for that one, Dr. Tenpenny. The PCR tests are actually really cool and reliable.
Yeah.
That healthy, asymptomatic people had to be tested by invasive procedures to prove that they were well. And then they lied to us, and they convinced us that if we accepted this shot, which is not a vaccine, but it is a genetic modifying tool, that if we got that injected in...
No. just no.
No.
So just to be clear, a vaccine is something that stimulates an that is not a pathogen,
Right.
and it stimulates an immune response so that when you are exposed to the pathogen, you have a stronger response and you don't get sick. Right?
Yes.
That's what a vaccine does. It's a thing that stimulates a response that is not a pathogen. So when the real thing appears, you know how to kill it, and you don't get sick, or you're less likely to get sick from it, or you get less sick from it, right? That's what a vaccine is and what it does. Now, in order to modify your DNA, what you need to do is inject something into your cells, cut your DNA, and then put the thing that you put into your cells into the DNA in your own cells. Yeah, she thinks that the vaccine is CRISPR, because CRISPR is this genetic splicing mechanism that we've isolated from bacteria, and it actually does the thing I just described. It can cut a target site in the DNA, it can remove stuff, it can put stuff in, right? That's oversimplifying, but those are the effects of what it can do. And the vaccine doesn't do that for a couple of reasons. One, we don't have the enzymes to do that. The vaccine doesn't include the enzymes to do that. So like, hard to do it without the enzymes.
Yeah.
Second thing is our DNA lives in a castle called the nucleus in our cells. mRNA is exiled from that castle. You make mRNA and you kick it out. That's all it does. Now, this vaccine, and we're talking about Pfizer and Moderna here, they're mRNA. They never get into the nucleus. They're not allowed. That drawbridge is one way, right?
Yeah.
And they don't go in. So you can't modify the DNA if you are never in the same compartment in the cell as the DNA. So
also, just to take a step back, when she was like that healthy people have to prove that they are well. Like, do you not know the story? I know the story of Typhoid Mary, right?
Yeah.
Typhoid Mary was an asymptomatic carrier. That's one of the scary things about COVID, is that asymptomatic folks can still be carriers, and that's not half as rare as it was with like typhoid.
It's like,
especially, how can you as a physician not understand the concept of an asymptomatic carrier?
I think you're being too nice, because I think the question is, how can you not understand the concept? I think the question is, you understand the concept. Why are you saying this?
Why are you saying this? Yeah.
Right. Right.
You're right. I do still have some faith in humanity. I should probably get a couple beers in. That's
nope, mine's gone. It's gone.
Oh no.
Totally gone.
Ooh. Wow. Yeah. But you're right. This is just like
3 minutes.
Like huge statement after huge statement. We just can't keep dropping
can't keep going at this rate, right? We're 3 minutes in and we've hit what's left? Magnetism? What have we not said?
Aliens, Satanists making candles out of babies.
Well, let's find out.
Into our bodies, that somehow we would be free. We would be free to resume our normal activities, the ones that should not have been taken away from us in the first place. Now they're in the process of creating something called COVID Pass to track our every move, to give us permission to go into restaurants and on cruise ships and go to,
because no one wants to hang out with your unvaccinated ass.
Convenience.
Right. Nobody wants to be like, hi, hey everybody, it's cool if you're just going to spread COVID around while we're all hanging out.
Yeah, I guess several 100,000 more people can die because you wanted to go on a cruise.
Because you wanted to go on a cruise. I'm spoiled because I live in a part of the country that is generally cool with masking and stuff. My students, I'm not teaching in person this semester, but my students are back on campus and they're all high vaccination rates and masked when they are in class in person. Everyone's down with it and it's all good. Now I recognize that is not universal in the greatest nation on earth, TM, because freedom. So I can imagine there are places where people are just going to get together and hang out as though nothing is happening. But I don't want to be around those places and those events. I like knowing. Also, COVID Pass and whatever other scary things you want to come up with. There's a thing called universal health records that have all your vaccinations. Then you have to give them to every school you go to ever. in order to be able to go to school. This is not a new thing.
And you also have to have them to go for a lot of jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're working with anybody, if you're working in healthcare at all, everybody in that office should be vaccinated. Or if you're working with anybody who might be like immunocompromised, you know?
If your job involves travel to various places, there's vaccines you need to get that you don't need to get if you stay in the United States, right?
Yeah, that's like if you were going to travel to Africa, you have to get certain vaccines to go. Yeah, that's true.
Every time one of my kids goes to the pediatrician, we give the daycare a new updated vaccine record card that has all their vaccinations and the dates.
Yeah.
And like, that's just normal business. That's just a normal thing that we do. So
vaccines are such an effective public health measure. Like, it's not even funny. They're so safe and so effective.
I've long argued that arguably the single there's a two-way race, I think, for the people on Earth that have their work has saved the most lives. And I think the race is between Jenner, who is generally regarded as the inventor of like the modern concept of vaccine. Like smallpox inoculation was a thing for a long time, but like modifying it specifically so it's non-infective. That was Jenner, and so that was the early 1800s. And then in the mid 1800s, you've got John Snow, not that one, the other one, who figured out sanitary water. Where dirty water would carry disease. So if you have clean water, that sanitation was kind of was the thing he figured out. And specifically for cholera, but obviously it applies to dozens of other things too. I think the two of them are like, I think it's one or the other is probably in terms of like net lives saved based on their work. It's one or the other, either sanitation or vaccines.
Right.
It's just in terms of public health, you can't beat it.
Right. Let's keep going.
And that was over 200 years ago we figured that out. And
that we have to get this shot. And we will see as time goes on that they created COVID in order to get us injected with this genetic modification tool that will permanently and irreversibly change your God-given genetics. This entire series of...
I mean, we can't just pause after every sentence, but can we?
Can we? Okay, how, why, and to what purpose?
The first part of that was somebody created COVID. Just asserted, just like they created COVID. We all agree on that. Now let's talk about, whatever, right?
Oh my gosh.
It hurts. It hurts.
Insane.
All right.
Or deeply malicious.
Series of programs will be based upon Ephesians 6, chapter 10 through 17, starting with fighting powers and principalities. Finally, be strong in the Lord, relying on his mighty strength. Put on the whole armor of God so that you may be able to stand firm against the devil's strategies. For our struggle...
I'm pretty sure that's talking about like, hey, kids, you should probably not lie, even if you know you can get away with it, because that's not the right thing to do.
Struggle is not against human opponents, but against rulers, authorities, cosmic powers in the darkness around us, and evil spiritual forces in the heavenly realms. For this reason, take up the whole armor of God so that you may be able to stand whenever evil comes. And when you have done everything you could, you will be able to stand firm. Stand firm, therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth around your waist, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and being firm-footed in the gospel of peace. Also take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. You will find in all of these programs now going forward.
Here's the thing, though. If your doctor starts quoting scripture at you, you should leave regardless of what your personal faith is.
You should run.
You should run away.
So this is a spiritual fight. This is
It's a
not. This is a.
spiritual
This is a.
attack.
So to recap so far, this is a man-made virus.
Mhm. But it's not
but
really man-made.
But the pandemic is a lie.
Yeah.
So we invented a thing, but it's not real. But then we lied and said it is real in order to get people to get the vaccines to change their DNA because Satan.
But it's not really man-made. It's definitely like Satan-made because our fight is not against the powers of this world, but against the powers and principalities.
So it's Satan making us make the fake virus and then pretend there's a reason to get everybody vaccinated, and then that serves some goal.
Because the scientists weren't wearing the belt of righteousness.
Okay.
I think that's an uncommon magical item. I think that's sort of hard. Sorry. Okay, I've been writing a D&D module all day, so...
that we will talk about current events in light of biblical principles. And in order to make that happen and to launch this series of programs, I wanted to bring on one of my dear friends and a person who I believe is the strongest, most powerful voice across the internet, my good friend, Scott Kesterson.
I don't know who that
Hi,
is.
Scott. Thank you so much for coming and joining us on the Tenpenny Files, the inaugural launch, actually, of this entire program series. I couldn't think of a better person or a better way to announce what this programming is going to be all about than to have you on as my special guest.
I appreciate you having me on. This is really an honor. Thank you.
So we talked about, and you and I've had lots of conversations offline and on your really powerful show Bards FM. And when I do my happy hour with Dr. T, we've talked an awful lot about what's going on in current events and how important it is to put on the full armor of God. Can you expound on that for us, please?
So first of all,
we amend that verse. Sorry, go on.
No, I would just wanted to say just that question in the interview is just, we're talking about vaccines, and now we're just like, and we're going to go over here now, which is quite the jarring change.
But Dan, I have a plan. Okay. Tonight, you and me, and let's go with Santa, because I think he's the only one that has the speed for this mission. We have to go to everyone's Bible in the whole world. And we have to add in the armor of God list, we have to add the mask, a mask of kindness,
pestilence, a mask of something with the word pestilence in it.
A mask of pestilence protection, and we'll sneak it in there. Well, no. It's a mask of like demon warding. Again, I've been doing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah, today. Okay, that works.
So a mask of demon warding, and we'll just slip that verse in. Do you
just like so? We have to do. We have to do a for the people familiar with the Mistborn series. We got to do a ruin. You know.
Yeah.
We got to get in there and change the wording. What about the people who inscribe their Bible verses in metal? Oh, the mask of purity. That's the answer.
Oh, I love this. Carrie Bronson, you win. The mask of purity.
The mask of purity. Yeah. Yeah, we need that.
It's problem solved. We've got it.
I'm looking this guy up. I'll tell you, I'm not optimistic because this podcast that was just mentioned, I've got episodes. Most of the titles are very generic, but the ones that are descriptive, we've got Vax Wars.
Ooh.
Fueling the Second American Revolution, which, if you are familiar, and based on your reaction, I suspect you are, Maddie, if you are familiar with the fractal subcommunities of right-wing politics in the United States, you know what the phrase Second American Revolution means and just how fringe we are right now.
Wow. How did we find a rabbit hole? By the way, what's really frustrating me here is, like, couldn't you imagine a very nice Sunday school teacher talking to kids about the verse that's like, we're going to put on the whole armor of God, and that's why we're going to wear our masks, right? Is
You would
because
think that would
we're
be
going
good.
to, you know, be good like people, and we're going to put on our masks to protect ourselves and
We're
protect
going to
others,
protect other
right?
people.
Like, that's the Sunday school lesson I would teach.
You would think, but here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Of course. I mean, I think where we are right now is to be looked at very clearly is the question of what is really happening. And we have obviously before us an unbelievable layering of lies.
Let's just be clear. What is really happening is there was a zoonotic virus that caused a global pandemic that has killed millions of people, and we now have vaccines that virtually eliminate the threat of death from this virus. So everyone should get vaccinated so we can end the pandemic and go back to normal. That's the summary of what's happened, right? Just to be clear. I don't know what this guy is going to say, but it's probably not that.
Lies and deceit, and the world around us is pretty much in total chaos. We have very little or no leadership in our nation at this point in time. We have a known death count that's rising on VAERS with the people that are dying from this injection.
No. Nope.
Sure,
Nope.
sure don't. That's not real. Wow. Oh.
So that's, for people who don't know, VAERS is the Vaccine Adverse Reaction Reporting System. I forget what the specific acronym stands for, but it's something with vaccine adverse reactions. It is completely 100% unfiltered. It is the next door news feed of vaccines. It is the Facebook wall of your parents' generation. Like, it is just everything anybody wants to say. It is the I don't know, what's a website where it has like people, what's that website where people ask questions and it's just the most bonkers answers and it's just like random joke?
It's Quora.
Yeah, it's that.
That's
what it is. It's just anybody can post anything on VAERS. It's completely unverified.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well,
I could rant for hours about VAERS.
But something that's that we actually use in weather research, right? And specifically with severe weather is so if there's a hailstorm and hail hits your house, you are encouraged to take a picture of the hail, go outside once it's safe, take a picture of the hailstone next to like a tape measure and tweet that to the National Weather Service at your area. And they'll collect all of that like metadata, right? And use that to get a good map of where there was, how big the hail was where, because hail size can vary from like one block to the next. And so that but just because like a 3-inch hailstone, my neighbor took a picture of a 3-inch hailstone, right? Doesn't actually mean like my house was hit by 3-inch hail. You know what I mean? And it's a little simpler, I think, when we're thinking about like hail, but it's still like a lay person, not a meteorologist, doesn't know how to take a mass of Twitter photos and turn that into something that's actually usable for, say, an insurance claim, because that's what they do with that data. So like raw unfiltered data, which is what VAERS is not useful. Right. And it doesn't tell you anything. It's just like it's just the cake batter. It's not the cake. Right. Or I guess it's just all of the ingredients to a cake. We haven't even made the batter yet. Right.
Right. We're not measuring anything. We're just
exactly.
like, you need flour and sugar and this, and that's it.
Right. So you went into your cabinet and you grabbed all of the ingredients and you put them on the counter, and you have to know what you're doing in order to make something of that. That's, I don't know, that's my off the noggin analogy.
Also,
yeah,
if what the conspiracy theorists say is true in terms of the frequency of severe adverse reactions on VAERS, it would be an unhideable news story, because hundreds of thousands of people would be getting sick and dropping dead.
Like all the time.
Like all the time. Everybody would know somebody who got vaccinated, and then like something bad happened. Everybody would know somebody. And it's weird how these reactions tend to cluster around anti-vaxxers, because most people don't know anybody who had anything worse than like the run-of-the-mill side effects of my arm was sore for a few days, I got a fever, I had some body aches for a day, that's what I had. Like, it's the normal side
like
effects.
I took some ibuprofen and slept it off.
And you're fine, yeah. And then, but the anti-vaxxers, they have an uncle who died. They have, a grandparent who got, who's like paralyzed on their left side. They have a cousin who's right. They have all these different, like, they have clusters of people just that anti-vaxxers know. It's very weird.
It's very
the spatial distribution is very weird.
Right. And it's also true that, like, if let's say I got a vaccine last week and I stubbed my toe today, right? I could go on VAERS and report that stubbed toe.
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah. And now I wouldn't do that because I understand that my stubbed toe is unrelated to a vaccination. But there's nothing preventing me from reporting that to VAERS.
Yeah. You can't take VAERS at face value. It's just self-reported, like everything. It's completely unfiltered. Oh my goodness, no.
It's a self-reported mess that is useful if you know what to do with it.
We have nobody speaking out against it. And yet we have this constant push of getting people to a goal of 70% penetration into the society to get everybody injected. And we are seeing that people being put in this position of having to be pressured or make choices on this, of either being part of society or not. And I think ultimately that's where this whole thing starts to fall apart.
I mean, yeah, those are the rules.
There are
rules you have to follow to be part of society.
Right. Like, you have to wear clothes when you go outside. You should cover your nose when you sneeze, right? Or like no one's gonna sit next to you on the subway.
You can't go around punching people in the face.
Right. Society has rules, and most of society will let you do just about anything you want until you start negatively affecting society.
It's right. It's the your right to swing your fist stops at my face rule, right? So when you are doing something that is threatening the well-being of other people, that's where society can step in and say, you are not allowed to do that here.
You can do that. Participate in society. You can go elsewhere.
You can do that on your own.
You can buy
a cabin. You could buy a cabin in Montana and do that if you want.
Absolutely.
But you can't be here and do that because that threatens other people.
Right. And to be clear, if someone very much does not want to get vaccinated and therefore what they choose to do is buy 100 acres in Montana and never leave that 100 acres, like, great.
Go nuts.
Go nuts.
Fine with me.
I don't have a problem with someone who like doesn't want to get vaccinated. I have a problem with somebody who doesn't want to get vaccinated and still wants to live in society, right? Again, I don't have a problem if you want to go to a boxing gym and throw punches all day long, but the second you leave the boxing ring, that social contract is broken. You can't keep throwing punches.
Right.
Yeah.
And it starts to reveal the true intent, because where we really are right now is not a question of whether you're part of society or not, or culture or not. It's really where we're sitting with our relationship to God and faith. And that right there is where we come into this concept of the armor of God, because as we are sitting here and feeling this pressure.
Maddie, you seem to have thoughts.
Again, not surprised to anyone. Maddie is a Christian, right? And I'm very vaccinated. This has nothing to do with like for me, in my mind, the only place where like whether or not you're going to get a vaccine steps into like faith is that like, hey, Christians are called to like take care of your neighbor, and specifically the most vulnerable in society. So you got to get a vaccine.
Feeling this push to be taking an injection, which this is not just a standard injection. I think we need to step back, and I think you and I can have agreed fully that there's so much more behind this injection than just say a simple flu shot, which in itself has its own issues. But this is something that was accelerated forward. It's including new technologies. There's no hiding
Okay, I just want to be clear. The mRNA vaccine technology is over a decade old. Just want to be clear about this. It started actually for cancer treatments, and it has since crossed over into infectious disease vaccination. There are several vaccines that were mRNA vaccines in the works prior to the COVID vaccines that went through phase 1 and 2 trials. Some of them phase 1, some of them 1 and 2. This is not something we invented in 2020. This is not, it's not that. Just to be clear, everybody,
And like,
this is not a new technology.
Vaccine is not a new technology. And even mRNA vaccines, like vaccines are so, look,
vaccines are a 200-year-old technology.
Trusty, like vaccines are as old as like Singer Treadle sewing machines, right? I actually wonder. Sewing machine.
Depending on the type of vaccine, it's probably older. Now that you think about it.
You can get Singer machines today that were manufactured in the late 1880s is the oldest you can get.
So the attenuated vaccines go back to the Napoleonic Wars. That was actually how, so fun fact, everybody, that was actually how Jenner figured out the thing. So what he did is he used a form of cowpox to vaccinate against smallpox. And he did this because there were two groups of people that he noticed didn't get smallpox. And it was milkmaids and members of the cavalry in the military, because cowpox also infects horses. And so these people, the milkmaids and the cavalry, were infected by cowpox and therefore didn't get smallpox. And so what he did is he inoculated people with cowpox.
No, he inoculated his own children and then intentionally exposed them to smallpox, and they were fine.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, that type of medical testing was really putting your money where your mouth is, right? Like,
yeah, but I think it was also like, well, if they get smallpox, they're gonna die. You know what I mean? Like,
right. So.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's called an attenuated vaccine. And then the polio vaccine, of course, very famously, there are two forms of that from the 1950s. One was an attenuated, one was an inactivated vaccine, right? So, I mean, we're talking centuries old technology for vaccination. For the kind of modern forms of vaccines, you're going back 70, 80 years. And then the mRNA technology, you're going back over 10 years. So, this is not... So it's not like
I couldn't drink when mRNA vaccines were invented. Yeah. Okay.
What's in it? We can go to, or at least the design behind it. We don't know exactly what's in it, but we know the design principles.
We know exactly what's in it.
You know exactly what's in it.
Because when it gets approved, you have to tell the FDA what's in it. Yeah. And that's public.
Yeah, we do know exactly what's in it. Come on, man, do your research. Also, Dr. Tenpenny, you're a doctor. You know that.
You know that.
Those behind it are carrying a principle right out of Moderna's site that's saying that our DNA is the hardware, the mRNA, the manually created RNA, is the software, so that they can introduce the new software of life. We're getting into the code of life, the code of our operating system, the code of our DNA. And that's us placing ourselves at the hands of pharmaceutical companies that are...
So first, let's be clear. Pharmaceutical companies do a lot of shady stuff and not cool. But I don't know what this dude is talking about right now.
No, I want this dude to put his money where his mouth is. And next time you get sick, either don't go to the doctor because we don't trust pharmaceutical companies, or B, make sure that you can read and understand every ingredient on every drug before they give it to you. Oh, that doesn't apply to Tylenol. Oh, that doesn't apply to anything else, but it does to just penicillin. This one. Doesn't apply to penicillin. Doesn't apply to ivermectin, right? No.
Ooh, good one.
Ooh, but it applies to specifically this.
Can we just, since you brought up ivermectin and we're talking about, the rapidity of the introduction of potential treatments, just Maddie, just look at your screen and just look at the bottom of that list of videos real fast.
Yeah. Oh, the bottom of that list of videos is I scrolled angrily and I went down too far. Okay. Is hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin with Dr. Sherry Tenpenny.
How much testing has there been for those things in COVID? How much? Oh, no, really?
None.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Never would have thought.
Never would have thought. Why in the world would people have not thought to use a medicine to treat parasites, to treat a virus?
To treat parasitic worms.
Yeah.
It's almost like those are different things.
It's almost like that. Like, it feels like those are different. Okay. I don't know about you, but my drink is empty. So I'm gonna call for a quick, like, minute-long bio break.
Let's take let's pause. Let's take a break.
I also need to calm down.
We're 7 minutes in, 8 minutes in, and
I'm so mad.
This is unacceptable.
I'm so mad. Okay, I'm gonna get another beer. We're gonna get right back to it. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back, everyone.
Yeah. Okay, you ready? And we're back. All right. I switched to an Oktoberfest, but it's from the same brewery.
Seasonally appropriate.
Seasonally appropriate. All right. I took my hoodie off, so I'm into like fighting shape. Yeah, like let's go.
All right.
That are now assuming the role of God. And somehow in all of this, with this fear cycle that is going on, there is a blindness that has occurred within society that is rushing them to accept something that's not approved, something that is.
It is approved. That's just a lie.
Yeah.
I got nothing else to say. That's just not true.
It's approved. Do you want to know what's not approved to treat COVID or prevent COVID?
Is it ivermectin?
It's ivermectin.
Is it hydroxychloroquine? Is it
also
zinc?
That. Yeah.
That is modifying your DNA and your core programming to God, and somehow that's
doesn't modify your DNA. It doesn't. It can't.
Do it.
It doesn't. That doesn't work. It's not how anything in the cell works. Can't do that.
Can't do it. It doesn't reach the
by
castle walls. There we go. We'll stick with the analogy.
It can't do it.
People, as they are stepping away from their faith and their loyalty to God and choosing a path down a road where they're handing over the keys to their own body, their own genetics, to a pharmaceutical company. Right there.
So I want to be clear about this because I have a little more insight into this than the average person, because I'm actually in the Pfizer vaccine trial.
Okay.
Like I'm in the trial. So I was getting experimentally injected back in like October of 2020.
Okay. Lucky. No.
It turned out I did get I was not in the original trial. I was not in the placebo arm. I was in the real thing arm. So I actually got mine in October and November. And then we switched over to the booster trial. And I got that in July. And we were recently unblinded for that. And I also got the real thing, which is like, man, I'm just hitting getting lucky with my random experimental injections, right? I don't know what they are. So I want to be very clear because the packet of disclosures that you sign is fairly comprehensive. they're not taking my DNA. They're not doing that. They're doing periodic blood tests to check for things like antibody levels and immune response. So every so often I go in and they take some blood, and I don't know what they do with it in terms of specifics, but I know because they have all these disclosures about what they will and will not do. And they're not taking my DNA. I'm not giving them my DNA.
Right.
And I'm in the trial. So
Yeah.
like for the average person, how would the average person, Maddie,
Yeah.
all you're not doing blood work every time you get a vaccination.
No.
They're just doing it, and then you're out the door, and they don't hear from you again. How are they getting your DNA? How would that even happen?
I don't know. Also, this whole thing about like your God-given DNA, blah, 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 blah. Are you telling me that like if tomorrow a treatment or a cure for cystic fibrosis was found, that they could go in and like it's a genetic disorder and it kills you, right? But if you could go in and like either turn off or turn on that offending gene, I don't know the way it works, but like you're telling me that if that treatment came into existence tomorrow, then you would tell people not to do it because that would be changing your God-given DNA.
Sounds that way.
Like, then again, you better put your money where your mouth is.
Right.
Because they don't mean what they're saying, like at all.
Right. There is like, for example, so this is a thing that I'm hopeful for down the road is if we do get CRISPR working for humans, we will, in theory, be able to prevent cancer. We will be able to get rid of cancer by increasing the copy number for certain genes that need to break. And like elephants, for example, they have this gene, it doesn't matter what it is, but they have about 20 copies of it, and elephants almost never get cancer. Humans, we only have 2 copies of this gene. And so if they both break, it's a gene called a tumor suppressor gene. So you can imagine it regulates cell division, and if it breaks, that's a problem, right? Well, elephants have lots of copies of it, so you have to break a lot more things in order to clear that hurdle for cancer to occur. Well, if you could use CRISPR to just put like another 10 copies of this gene into the human genome, then like most cancers will not happen then at that point. Not all, but most. That would be amazing. Now there's a future where like we just be like, hey everyone, here you go, free to everyone, and now no more cancer. And there's also a future where it costs $100,000 and only the rich can do it. And gee, I wonder which road we're going to go down. But like, tell me this guy is not going to be like, I'm going to inject your children, and that means your grandkids will never get cancer, ever. You're going to tell me you're not going to do that?
Like, sign me up. Gosh.
Like, yeah, it's too late for me because I've already had kids. So like, but you inject them, and then their kids will be covered, right? Because it would modify them, and then they would pass that to their offspring. So it would be like, if you'd be like, inject them, that's awesome. Like so let me go back 10 years, before I had, or 5 years before I had kids. I'm going to give you an injection, and it means your kids will never, it'll change your DNA and your kids will never get cancer. Give me 2.
Can we like triple up on that just to make sure?
You're right. Can we just be really sure? Yeah. Tell me you're not going to do that. Give me a break.
Right. So they're just like spouting off rhetoric of things that they don't mean, right? Because there's no way they mean this. And then they're going in and like, I can't tell you here the like how so this was September, so a month ago. Every bed in the ICU in the entire state was full with COVID patients, right? And the ERs were full with people who took ivermectin and had to like, and so like the harm that these people are doing is insane because, and we saw, because it's not about the individual. These are public health measures, right? Because if it's like, okay, does this one person does or doesn't get the vaccine? Does this one person do something stupid and take horse dewormer, right? Like, people are stupid and do stupid things. But like, when you're encouraging that stupidity at a mass scale during a pandemic, right? Like
That's-
anti-vaxxers were mildly concerning because we were seeing measles outbreaks in certain places.
Yep.
Like that was concerning, but it still felt really fringe. But like, and now that it matters that everyone or everyone who is able to gets vaccinated for all of our health, gosh.
Yeah, it's this is why I've lost faith in humanity.
Yeah, this makes me angry.
There's where our battle line is.
Why do you think people have been so willing to bow their knee to the pharmaceutical industry, particularly Christians? What has made them walk away from God and lean in to the pharmaceutical industry out of fear? Why do you think?
I'm sorry, I could maybe get another octave higher into that, but like, so that's what, like, getting a vaccine is breaking a command from God, apparently, to bow, like, get on your knees before a pharmaceutical company. Like, one, you're not talking about the problem of, like, pharmaceutical being a for-profit business and the post-capitalistic hellscape, right, of American healthcare system.
There's a legitimate critique here, but they're not making it.
But that's not what they're talking about. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm sorry, Robert. I'm sorry. I didn't do that on purpose. I'm sorry.
This is the first time either of us have watched this video. This is real-time reactions to this stuff, and it's unflipping believable.
Yeah. Let's hear why people are turning away from God. Apparently, I'm a terrible Satanist now, I think. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I think the first word on that you said is fear itself. Fear is a liar, and fear is one of those things that's repeated, and depending on the version of the Bible you have, fear is said up to 366 times in Scripture, and it's fear not.
Okay.
I
you know why that is? Why that's said
366
times in Scripture, and it's always like be not afraid? Because every single time God or an angel shows up, right, the humans are terrified, and they have to be like, dog, like, don't be scared. I'm using my powers for good.
Because someone came back from the dead, or there's a bush on fire that's talking to you, or you're having what seems to be a seizure. Like, there's always something terrifying going on.
Not like a never be afraid in any circumstance, right? It's to be like, I recognize that this is a terrifying visage, and you, puny human, might be frightened, but it's all right. Again, I'm here to use my powers for good.
Right.
To say it, to be like, guess what? This is kind of a bad idea. It's like, yeah, it's a bad idea. It's a sin, is what it is. We can't
absolutely
live in
not.
loyalty.
What is the specific sin associated with vaccination?
No, I think it's being afraid.
Oh.
I think he's saying that being afraid is a sin.
No, that's not on
it's
the
really
list.
not. That's a normal human emotion.
Right.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Ugly German truths. To these people, I'm a dirty heathen. Like, it's fine. They don't care about what my personal faith is. That's
that's my favorite. The ones that the people that have a religion, and then they tell other people that also share that religion, you don't count. That's my favorite.
No, I don't count.
What, you don't get to decide that.
Yeah.
It's like,
to God and walk in this place with fear. And if you pay attention, as I hope people would, how everything is built in our culture of information, fear is the singular engine that keeps people off base. And because fear has, as you know,
I feel like not having sufficient material resources also keeps people off base. Like having to decide how much food you're going to buy versus do I get the insulin I need versus paying rent versus not having sufficient, mental health care. Right. I feel like that's a larger problem.
Yeah. Listen, fear is a very healthy emotion. It's a very normal thing. This was a few years ago, but there's that uncontacted tribe that lives on an island off the coast of India.
The yes, what's the island called? I know exactly which one you're talking about. Yeah.
But do you remember a few years ago there was this like 20-year-old kid that like right out of
Yeah,
Bible college
that idiot.
was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Mhm.
canoe there and convert them, and then they killed him with arrows. Right?
North Sentinelese Island?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm like, I feel like fear would have been
Would
a
have been
good thing
useful.
for that young man
Would
to
have been
feel.
they're
Oh,
brandishing
they're
weapons.
brandishing weapons in my direction, wanting me to leave.
I should leave.
I should probably leave. Fear is a great thing for self-preservation. It's a healthy emotion. God.
A effect on our cognitive processes. It affects our chemicals in our brain. It stimulates our adrenaline, which it narrows our focus when that happens, and it gets us.
Yeah,
Fear is the mind killer.
Right, but that's like I mean, I would agree that like if you, I forget what study this was. I read it in like in a pop science article because it's not my field, but it was interesting. It was talking about like the effects of poverty on brain development in children, and it was like the constant stress and those constant stress hormones
that's bad.
of just insecurity can mess up your brain.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so like that's definitely true.
And that those effects are actually heritable generation over generation. Like,
oh wow, okay.
Like you could actually detect like generational trauma. Like that's a real thing.
Wow.
Where there are heritable changes in gene expression patterns that are inherited. And then that can lead to physiological effects in subsequent generations.
Wow.
Like higher than average blood pressure, for example.
Okay. So what do you think Spencer and Dr. T here are doing to help end child poverty? Because they're really very concerned about the effects of long-term stress on the brain.
Right. I think they are working very hard to promote their own work, to end the potential poverty of their children and grandchildren. So they're doing their part that way. I don't think they're contributing to the systemic solution to the systemic problem.
Sure don't. Sure doesn't. And that's the thing that really drives me nuts about this is like, apart from like wackadoos having wackadoo opinions, right? This is more like if you actually believed the things that you were saying, then I would expect the following action.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that's part of the like, and for everyone watching, that's part of the general BS detector toolkit is like, if you actually believed X, what's the rational behavior in response to that? Are they doing that? No. Then they probably don't believe the thing they're saying.
Right.
Gets us into the state of dopamine, which settles us down and keeps our focus on a very, very narrow plane in life. Everything is short-term thinking. And these constant fear cycles also create a very dark and subtle addiction to our own chemicals in our brain. And as we start to get in these feedback loops or OODA loops in this fear cycle, we cease to look long-term and we're looking immediately towards the
OODA loop. I've heard that phrase before, but not in this the OODA loop. I've heard that phrase before, but not in this context.
Also,
it has to do with, I'm pretty sure I've heard that in the context of like pilots. Yeah, it's observe, orient, decide, act is what that means. Yeah,
okay. Yeah, that seems like in the Navy we call that like situational awareness. No, sorry, we call that OPSEC, operational situation control.
It sounds
something.
Any of that stuff sounds like the same concept. I think it's for the context I heard it was like fighter pilots or something. It's like, what's going on? What do I do? Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Exactly. Thank you.
Can't pronounce your name. I'm sorry, but you seem very cool. Observation, orientation, decision, action. Yeah. So like when you're in a high stress environment, like there are coping mechanisms to handle that stress, and like such as any job in the military. And like, that's a way of thinking that isn't super useful when you're not in high stress. Like, it's useful when you're in high stress.
It's acute stress, though.
Okay. Yeah.
It's specifically acute stress. It's
Okay.
fight or flight. It's like,
Okay.
I need to figure out what I'm doing right now.
this
It's
second.
not
Okay.
like I need to balance the budget for the next month and I'm 20% short. Like, that's not going to help
okay.
you.
Yeah. Sorry. Again, I'm thinking military. So it's like, I mean, I was like never deployed. I was short my whole time, but you know, like I was on watch, and I was on watch and in charge of like 5,000 people. Something went horribly wrong with
Nice.
one of them every single time.
That's definitely stressful.
It was a little stressful, and it was like, just got a phone call that my student's in the hospital again. So I'm like, okay, I can't do anything to help him, but I need to inform, you know, like you jump into that type of, is it bad that like I wouldn't even refer to that as acute stress? That's just being on watch. I don't understand.
No, that sounds like acute stress. That sounds like exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, I think that's what we're talking about. Oh no, so like a good one was I got called out because a student or one of my junior sailors at PT dislocated their knee, right? And I was in charge of everyone. So, but 5,000 people, someone's got a weird knee.
That's same lot. I have every semester, me and my colleagues, we have about 2,000 students. Something happens 1% of the time, you get 20 of them. It's
that's something that I like to remind like professors and students in like academic settings. Like our semesters are 4 months long. We've got 30 students. That's
something weird is going to happen.
That's like 10 years of life lived, right? Something's going to happen to someone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a useful.
It's a weird way to describe getting a vaccine.
Right, very
having
weird.
To do
and like
this.
That isn't so like living under a pandemic for almost 2 years, right, is certainly stressful, but that's not like acute stress. It's
chronic long term under the surface. I'm not like, it's if someone coughs on you in the supermarket, that's acutely stressful.
Yeah, and that's like, then there's things I need to deal with right now, right? I need to like go wash my hands. I need to, you know, do what I can. And that would be like an appropriate response. But yeah, no, chronic stress, that's very different. And that's
it's just it's a weird way to describe this situation.
It's a very strange way, and that's like, again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not in biological sciences at all, so I don't really know how the brain works. I have a passing understanding, but like, the brain responds differently to acute stress versus chronic stress.
Yes.
At least
it's
that's
totally
what my
different
therapist
sets of hormones.
Yeah.
Totally different sets of hormones. There's the acute stress is the adrenal medulla. That's adrenaline. Chronic stress is the adrenal cortex. So that's going to be like your corticosteroids. It's a totally different set of hormones. It's all different stuff.
Okay.
There's the release from anxiety. And in that place of release of anxiety, then we're looking for an out. And what people are doing is, instead of turning to faith, turning to God. And this gets to a simple question, a simple issue we'll touch on in just a moment, but it's the confusion that we are not physical first.
Listen, don't pause it, but like, so if God could come down and cure my anxiety disorder, that would be great. Like, but so far that hasn't happened. You know what I mean?
It's kind of a, but then like, it's kind of a, well, who do you think sent the boat kind of situation, right?
Yeah. So I don't, listen, like, for me, like, my personal faith brings me comfort, right? It's a thing that's part of my life because I choose for it to be a part of my life. And ugly German truths, that wasn't what I was thinking of. But I'm sure every brand has their own acronym. And like, but like, again, having faith doesn't cure you of depression. It doesn't cure you of anxiety, because that's not what those things do. Yeah. They can be positive things in your life. Anyway, let him keep rambling.
We turn to salvation through an injection, and that's handing over everything that we are to the trust of a pharmaceutical company to relieve our fear, when in fact the whole time fear can't be released through the relationship we have with God and the relationship.
Okay, I just need to say that. I just need to say this. F this guy.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing. I'm not trusting Pfizer. Pfizer publicly released a poop ton of data
Yeah.
that we can go through and be like, oh, this works. And then I don't have to worry about me or my wife or my parents or my siblings or my kids dying of a virus.
Yeah.
That is now vaccine preventable, right?
So
like there's no trust involved here. There's
this
no
is like,
trust.
This is like telling someone who is being actively chased by a tiger, right? That like instead of turning around and like shooting the animal that is attacking you, right? Instead of dealing with the actual problem, right? No, you should just run into this church and maybe bring the tiger with you. Right? Like that's what he's telling you to do.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a suggestion because we've been going for almost an hour and a half and we're 11 minutes in. There's so many rage-inducing things here. It's every sentence. So how about we go for like 2 minutes at a time and we try to bottle it up, and then we let it out.
And then we'll let it out. All right. I'll keep my mouth shut. Let's.
I'm gonna try. We're gonna see if we can do it.
I'm gonna like hold my breath.
Relationship we walk with God in this world. That's the principle of our spiritual life, is to live without fear.
And the spiritual leaders that we've talked about, I mean, we've talked about the travesty of Franklin Graham and all these other people who've just turned away from God, and the pastors that refuse to open up their churches. How do you perceive that? Why do you think that the pastors are so lame and they haven't taken a very historical stance? I mean, we've talked before about how that uprisings always happened in churches and in bars and pubs where people got together and said, we're not going to put up with this tyranny anymore. Where do we place the pastors and what do we do with that?
I just want to say how excited I am to hear what he's going to say in response to
The 501c3 church is where a lot of this begins. It's the sellout of the church to the nonprofit model. I mean, who would ever imagine that God would say, ask you to give a tithe so that you get a kickback from the government on your taxes? That's the first little trick. The other part of the 501c3 church is it's limited the band of conversation that they can have. They can't talk politics because it violates the 501c3 contract with the IRS.
No, because then you
the
can
original concept.
keep going.
let it out. Just let it just go. We went over a minute. Just go.
There's nothing that mandates a church be a 501c3, right? You can still be a religious organization and happen to pay taxes, right? Like, but if you're going to designate yourself as specifically a nonprofit, you have to follow the rules as all other nonprofits. And part of that doesn't mean, by the way, that you can't discuss politics. It does mean that you cannot endorse specific positions or no, you can even endorse specific positions, but you can't endorse specific candidates. That's all you can't do, right? And you can do that if you're willing to not be a 501c3. Like, if you're willing for those, and people can still tithe, and then they just have to pay taxes on it, like any other like organization, like it's what? Okay, hit play.
Our churches, which was part of the American Revolution period, the strong pastors we had that led to what we know today as the Black Robe Regiment. Those pastors were working in a principle of speaking truth about politics, about tyranny, and showing the application of the scriptures of what that meant in terms of being strong in faith and in Christ. Those churches, when we talk about separation of church and state, it's not taking God out of the government. It was making sure that God and government could be talked about separately from government without impunity by government.
I just want to point out that sentence was nonsensical. What did that mean?
I don't know.
But the point is that there couldn't be a state religion or state endorsement of any specific religion. That's what separation of church and state means. That's what that means.
Full stop.
Full stop. That's it. That's what that means. That's the end. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Backdoor to controlling that was the 501c3 church. So when we look at the architecture of our nation, we were built on the foundation which began with the Declaration of Independence. We were built on an architecture, first and foremost, of moral law, meaning that we were given inalienable rights by our Creator, and in so doing, we were accountable to our Creator to ensure that those were preserved. That is part of our charter, which is
that they were preserved for
confusing
white
the Declaration
landowning men. God, okay, continue.
I think he's confusing the Declaration of Independence with the Constitution.
A little bit.
Because the Constitution is the charter of government. The Declaration of Independence was the screw the King of England document.
Right, that was the F off letter to George III.
Right. The Declaration was the you can't fire me, I quit, slam the door. And then later was the wait, how are we going to run the new company?
Oh no.
That was later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our right and our duty to preserve, which the duty is the big word there because it's used in the Declaration of Independence. We are supposed to resist tyranny by the very foundation in which we are. And then going forward, the entire principle of the Constitution, which is reinforced by all the 85 of the Federalist Papers, shows that we have a constant requirement as citizens in this nation to be accountable to God, everybody.
No, because I'm the guy who sat down and read the Federalist Papers, and they don't say what he just said they say.
Yeah.
Like, I know probably a lot of people had to read like a handful of the big ones, and like if you took like AP US history or something, you probably had to read some of the Federalist Papers.
I haven't read any of them.
I'm the idiot who read all of them, and it was not a worthwhile use of my time.
Right, and the Constitution is a very specifically secular document, and as it should be. Like government should be separate from religion because otherwise you don't have freedom of religion.
Do you know? Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's it. What do you got?
Do you know what the actually the United States is a Christian nation rebuttal is for the Treaty of Tripoli?
No.
Which the Treaty of Tripoli is a very famous, it was negotiated during the Washington administration, but it was actually signed under the Adams administration. So it spanned the first two presidential administrations.
Yeah.
And one of the lines in that treaty very famously says the United States, something to the effect, I forget the exact wording because it was, from the 1700s, but it was something to the effect of the United States was in no way founded upon the Christian religion. It was actually written in the document. That's what it says. In fact, I'm going to look it up right now so I get the wording right. Treaty of Tripoli religion. See, I didn't even have to, I Googled Treaty of Tripoli R and it filled in religion quote. And it says, quote, as the government, so this was signed by President John Adams, 1797. It was negotiated under President Washington.
Okay.
As the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslims, and then it goes on from there. But like, not in any way founded upon the Christian religion. Does anybody know what actually, we are a Christian nation based on Christian law? Like, what's the rebuttal to that document? Because it says right there, it was negotiated under George Washington and signed by John Adams. Not like it just right there in black and white. What?
I don't think Reagan and Washington would have gotten along.
Probably not. I mean, nobody got along with Washington when he was alive, so I doubt anyone after Washington.
Fair.
The only person that got along with George Washington was Lafayette. Like literally the only person that got along with him was Lafayette.
Fair.
I just read a good book on Lafayette.
Apparently, according to chat, that treaty was passed unanimously by the Senate.
There you go. So the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists agree
Mhm.
that we're not a Christian nation. Very cool.
Including those who serve in this government, and therefore, in addition to that, but those that serve in government are accountable to the people. But the boundary of action, the boundary of ethics, the boundary of how we perform and conduct ourselves is always that at some point we are committed and we are accountable to God, and hence there is that principle of fear in God. So if we look over the last 240 plus years in our nation, what is the single thing that has been attacked that they have tried to remove from every government institution, every public institution, every private?
I know the answer to that one.
Mhm.
Racial equality.
Mhm.
That's the
Also,
answer. If there's
Did you notice
one
that
thing,
he just claimed that fear of God is a virtue, but he earlier said that fear was a sin?
that's a problem.
It's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
Private institution.
Racial
It's
equality.
the relationship of God, and for
for
good reason.
1,000
Because once
there,
we
Alex.
strip away that mold,
What are we bad at? That's
That
what we're bad at.
we're real bad at it.
base, we free fall. Where we are right now is we have leaders across our nation that are in free fall. There's not accountability or fear of God. And worse, in our churches, is they have succumbed to the will of government. That has never been the intent, and is definitely not the intent of.
I too pine for the good old days when churches were apolitical.
Yeah.
Remember those days?
Remember those days.
That actually, he just contradicts himself again, because earlier he said about how like stuff started in churches, right? And now he's like, oh, churches are too political. Along with the government. All right.
God's designed by the church. And they have now become, instead of becoming shepherds of the people, they are now literally leading their flocks like the Pied Piper off a cliff to encourage them with blasphemous comments like Christ would take the injection, or it is scriptural. There is no foundation in that whatsoever. That is the biggest lie someone could come out and say, and we have major influencers doing.
I don't think that's the biggest lie.
I don't think that's the biggest lie.
Trying to come up with a witty what is the actual biggest lie. I think it's that the United States is a meritocracy. I think that's the biggest lie.
If you go to college, you'll be financially.
You just have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's the biggest lie.
That's the biggest lie.
This lie. This is the second biggest lie.
Yeah.
That's the biggest lie. Yeah.
Yep.
Doing that, which has to lead us to a singular question: who are you serving? And that's a question everybody should be asking. I don't know who they're serving, but I can guarantee you it's not scriptural and it's not Christ.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing about
you're right.
Yeah, you're right. They're not. They're definitely everyone that doesn't agree with us are definitely not serving God.
Yeah. It's a really good political strategy to define the people on your own side in as narrow a way as possible to purposefully exclude a lot of the people who would self-identify with you if they were allowed to. That's a really good political, just in general, everyone, just keep that in mind. What you want to do to win the argument is make sure as few people as possible are in your circle of your team, right? Just make your team as small as possible. That's a great way to win. This is, in addition to being a dumb argument, this is also just strategically a dumb argument.
This is dumb on many levels.
Closing our churches, but we can't congregate and pray together. And if you do come into the church, wear a mask and don't sing. I mean, this whole thing is just so ridiculous, but yet we'll close all of that. Nobody can come, but stop by on Tuesday afternoon and get your shot, because we're holding a vaccine clinic. And some of the pastors who've gone so far as to say, we need to praise God for giving the wisdom to the scientists to develop this genetic modifying technique that they are injecting in.
It's not modifying your effing DNA.
It's not doing that at all. Also, I don't know about when you went, well, I guess because you're part of the trial, but when I went to get my vaccine, I had to drive out to like a rural Indian health clinic. But it was set up in the like community center.
Mhm.
And it was actually the community center, and the chairs, everything was spaced at least 6 feet apart. Everything was appropriately socially distanced.
Everyone's wearing a face diaper.
Everybody was wearing a face mask. It was, and they would like, when I went, there was very few people there, so it didn't, like, a lot of those measures kind of didn't matter. It was a room that could fit 200 or 300 people easily, and there were about 10 of us in there, you know. But I went like at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, you know, in Pawnee, Oklahoma. No, excuse me, Pawhuska, Oklahoma. That's where I went. Those are both real town names. And so
I just want to, if I could just jump in, there was one time somebody sent me one time a quiz, like a BuzzFeed style quiz of, is it a Pokemon or is it the name of a town in New Jersey? So don't feel left out. Apparently that was a sufficiently difficult that it got enough clicks that it went around. So just don't worry.
That's excellent.
Town names over there.
Oklahoma town names are insane because they're almost all native words, and so there's just a lot more vowels than we're sort of used to. And ugly German truths just dropping truth bombs left and right. And it, you know, I think if churches have been like, "Hey, team, this is our plan. We're going to meet outside. We're going to all be 6 feet apart. We're going to do like." And we're going to limit services to this many people, right, at a time. I think, like, if you had proposed that plan, that probably would have been okay. You know what I mean? But they were like, we want to have no plan. And like, okay, then no, you can't do that.
Also, churches are great social networks.
Yeah.
So that is how you get vaccination rates, is
Absolutely.
You do it through churches. There's a couple local churches and synagogues and everything. And you do the vaccine clinics through those existing networks. And that is very successful. That is a, like, there's an alternate universe where I don't want to say like the evangelical church, because it's not one thing, but like evangelical Christianity took the lead in like the social responsibility of vaccination. And so like those maps you see of like vaccine rates, where like the Northeast and the West Coast are really dark and the South is really light, there's an alternate universe where that is reversed. Because the churches took the lead on it, right?
And they were like, we're going to do the best. We're going to protect our people, and we're going to serve our
We're going
community.
to protect the flock. We're going to, whatever, however you want to frame it, right?
But no, we're not going to. We're not going to do a healthy version of religion. We're going to do as toxic a version as we can find. That's what we're going to do. That's the choice we're going to make really boldly. All right, press play. Let's see how much of this we can stomach.
Everybody. I mean, it's. Do you think that just really borders on blasphemy?
I don't think it borders on. I think it is.
I think you border on
blasphemy.
blasphemy.
It's the worst concept of blasphemy.
Does this border on blasphemy? No, it's right up there.
God,
what are we doing? What are we doing?
Every 2 seconds,
I'm gonna hit play so we can clear that from our short-term memory.
God, yeah, okay.
You know, I said this on a show this morning, and I think people need to really think about this. We consider it blasphemy, or let me restate. We consider this a violation of your loyalty to God in Christ if men are addicted to pornography. Okay, there is no question that if that's happening in a church, that there is a problem in your relationship with Christ, and you have to make atonement and you have to make corrections in that. Okay, we got it. It's in Scripture. Well, what happens when you rejected something?
Wait, hang on. That's in Scripture?
It's not.
It's not.
It's not.
It's not in Scripture.
Also, I love the casual misogyny of men being addicted to pornography. One, people don't get addicted to pornography. It doesn't release the right chemicals. Two, but definitely only men have sex drive.
Yeah, it's only men, right? It's only
men, and only men are.
men.
That's definitely No. So I guess I can do whatever I want. You're just SOL.
That was quite the minute that we got through.
Has rewritten God's code. Where's the accountability? We have a lot of Christians right now that have taken this or are part of churches that have been pushing this, and they're in the defensive mode. They're saying this constantly. They're saying, well, no. I've had salvation and I'm okay. I'm guaranteed a place in heaven. If I live that way and I lived with that principle, that means I can literally walk out here and do anything in the world I want. I could murder somebody, I can rob, I can steal, and that means I've got a place next to God. That is not the way the scripture reads. We are accountable in all of our actions and accountable to God. And when we made a decision on this injection to trust in science, to hack our DNA, to use an mRNA, which now not only allows us to hack, but it can update our quote life software at their will, an institution created by men.
Do they think the RNA is like nanobots?
I think they think that once you get the vaccine, they can then, from that point forward, edit your DNA at will, right? It's not like it was, because that's not even how CRISPR works, right? CRISPR is like a preloaded program.
No, it's a one and done. You do it, and it does it, and that's it. It's not like, it doesn't turn you into a Tesla that like they can remote update from the factory. That's not how it works. If it did work that way, we wouldn't need boosters.
Yeah, this is bonkers. I also love this whole like getting a vaccine is clearly a sin against God, right?
And
like
that's just a premise.
That's just a premise. Like, one, demonstrate that for me, my guy. Like, and like, does the Bible say you'll be held accountable for your actions? Absolutely. Specifically, how you treat the most vulnerable in society. And frankly, my guy, Spencer, whatever your name is, like you're doing a bad job. You did a bad. Like,
men run by men, never trust men, rule of the Bible. And yet here we are putting full trust in them for something that is fear driven, that was never a pandemic. And in the first response, which is the biggest violation of all, instead of turning to God in that moment of fear and saying, God, guide me, they turned to the media, listened to them, put on the face diaper, put a bow down to them, and said, please save me through an injection. That is absolute blasphemy to the bottom of the pit.
So I'm assuming this guy is completely unvaccinated, doesn't take antibiotics, none of that stuff. That's what I'm assuming based on what he's saying.
I bet that anytime if he were to go break his arm, he wouldn't go to the doctor, because that would just be trusting his like the fear and that pain of the broken bone to a man and to science and not to God. That's fun. That's fun. I don't like this man.
I'm strongly against both of these people.
I don't like either of them.
No.
One-way ticket to the lake of fire, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, there you go.
I love how you say things.
Get vaccinated, go to hell. There you go.
Well, I guess I'm going to hell, but at least we won't die of smallpox in hell.
Also, this guy probably won't be there.
It's true. So that's a plus. Good. That's like a plus in the hell category.
Yeah. You know. Yeah. When you're making your pro and con chart, everybody.
And things like that. And I've heard you say how that you want the job when you get to heaven, you want to be the elevator operator where you can push the down button for people.
Give me that job. I'll be glad to. I'll kick
That's literally not your job. That's a very of things in like Christian faith that are pretty well defined. Only God getting to do that is it's up there. It's up there with things that are clear. Wow. That's not a thing to laugh at. That's the closest thing to blasphemy that's been like. I am struggle busting for words. There's
just keep going.
There's not many like things that I hold as like doctrine, right? Like I'm very flexible. But like I think like judge not lest ye be judged. That's one of them. That's one of the things that I'm like, that's a real important one.
Yeah, that is.
Ooh. Listen, if I had to go to church with this guy, I would not be a Christian. I'll put that right out there.
That'll do it.
That's absolutely not.
Why do you think there's so many lapsed Catholics in the world?
Right.
Small little cookie and say, have a nice ride down to the lake of fire. This is so irritating to me, because in a country that is built on the foundations of strength, number one, American patriots have always been strong in God and strong against tyranny. And
Sure
somehow
haven't.
over the last
Continue.
100 years, that has flipped to be.
It's just always so interesting who is fighting against tyranny and who is imposing it. And there's always a very specific axis of that relationship that is always left out in this conversation, where it's like, yeah, all those dudes sitting in Congress in Philadelphia,
they definitely weren't exerting tyranny over anyone.
They weren't.
That
They
would
weren't
be
doing,
counter to what I learned in first grade.
They weren't doing a tyranny at all. There was no more
Clearly
tyranny.
not.
Tyranny ended in 1776
for everyone.
For everyone in the entire continent of North America. There was slavery, people. Slavery still existed. We had to fight a war to end it, just in case that wasn't clear, in case people weren't catching the subtext there.
Also, that was the time when there was a government-issued bounty for the bloody scalp of every Native man, woman, and child. So that was
a lot of tyranny going around.
Did a genocide. Did a couple genocides.
We did that. Even after the Supreme Court said, no, you can't do a genocide. Then Andrew Jackson was like, I'm going to do it anyway. And they did it.
Fuck Andrew Jackson. Fuck that guy.
The worst president. The worst.
You know that there are folks out here. So I'm in Oklahoma, right? So there's a very large Native population. There's people out here that will not carry $20 bills.
Yeah, because fuck Andrew Jackson. Can I say that on your channel?
Yeah, I don't say fuck very often, but Jackson deserves
fuck Andrew Jackson.
So fuck Jackson.
The worst U.S. president. The worst U.S. president.
Yeah, absolutely.
God is a principle of this nation, and compliance to tyranny is part of being patriotic. They've completely flipped the script, and we're witnessing it right before us. Who's questioning this out here? And not only are the people not questioning it, we aren't seeing any leadership in our leadership questioning it. Nobody. I said this the other day, and it's an issue of men and women, for example. Another one of these things I just shake my head at. Women have been leading this fight. I have nothing but praise for the women leading this fight. God bless you all for doing it. Where are the men?
Maddie, are you ready for some sexism? Because
I'm so ready for some sexism.
I feel we feel it coming. It's like when you can feel it's about. Yep. It's like when you can feel it's about to rain. Here it comes. You could just you could smell it, right? That's what's All right, let's do it.
I have sat and listened to this for years about I've got my guns, I've got this, I've got that. Okay, so now what's the deal? You're going to kick the women out the door to do your defense? You're going to sit on the couch and wait for something to happen? Do you realize that if the men had stood up in their communities and walked into the public square, walked into these county commissions, walked into the city councils, came up to the mayor's office and put their foot down and said, there is no way you are ever coming near my family or my community with this injection. No way, not happening. If they had told the pastors to close their churches, we're done with you. We are going to lead the ministry ourselves as God intended men to do. This would have ended in a week or two.
I just want thoughts.
So this is I'm going to paraphrase this monster of a person. So it's great that women are out there like leading the anti-vax movement, but if men had been in charge, it would have been way more successful. I don't even know how to unpack that.
Because violence, specifically.
Specifically because of gun violence, actually. Like let's like read the subtext and say the quiet part out loud, right? That's definitely what he was just encouraging. So no wonder she's banned on YouTube.
Yeah, a little bit.
Wow. And like again,
and they're not
of like it's great that women are doing this, but if men had been like I can't even unpack that because like it's the layer of sexism, but then the anti-vax, and I'm like, I don't know who to root for in this conversation. You know what I mean?
Like, If not for sexism, then the anti-vax would have been more. Like
What?
it's I don't know what's I
can't tell.
it's so bad.
It's
All right.
so bad.
Let's see if the next sentence makes any more sense.
Instead, we have absolute silence from our men. We have women trying to fight and protect the home. And we are being run over by these fake male leaders that are all in bed with pharmaceutical. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Just going to wait for Maddie to come back. And while we're waiting, just want to point out the silliness of, can you hear me?
Yes. I needed to get this poster.
Oh.
Because I joined the Navy. I bet he has feels about that.
Yeah, that's not a lot. I bet he has very strong feelings about women serving in combat roles.
Yeah, you know what? Women are real good at it. Turns out it's fine.
Turns out you can still do all those things if you have a uterus.
Turns out
it's okay. You can still do it just as well as anybody else.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Seriously, they just don't change the physical standards, and it's fine.
And it's fine.
And then the qualified people will do the job. Listen, the majority of humans on planet Earth couldn't have done the job that I did for the Navy because I taught nuclear physics, right? Like the levels of qualifications, and then also being able to be in the Navy, right? Like meet the physical fitness standards and all that jazz. Like that's a small portion of the population. And turns out like my gender had nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Maddie, I don't know if you heard it as you were getting up there, but there was also just at the tail end there, I want to make sure everyone caught it, that he basically said, in addition to this whole, the men have to do the defending spiel that we're on, at the end, he said, but the men who are playing a role right now who aren't doing that aren't real men, was the implication, right?
Ooh,
and then he made a point of in bed with the pharmaceutical companies, which I think there's some subtext there.
So did we hit we hit sexist marks, then we hit some toxic masculinity, and then
we sure did.
Homophobia?
I think it was implied. I think if you read between the lines, I think that's going on. Yeah.
Is that the unholy trinity?
It's part of the unholy
gender trinity. There we go.
It's the.
I'm sorry, I'm being very sacrilegious for funsies right now.
It's fine. It's fine. We're listening to two people spout off about anti-vax religious conspiracy theories, so I think it's okay.
Yeah.
All right. I think this might set the record for highest in terms of your pseudoscience streams. I think tonight might set the record for highest cumulative blood pressure.
Mm-hmm. Definitely highest octave of voice.
Yes.
I've never got. Yeah, that hasn't happened before.
Yeah, we definitely did that.
One, we haven't gotten to the promised, undisputable proof of the Satanists.
Oh yeah, we haven't gotten to that yet. It was just the amorphous conspiracy, the them at the beginning. All right, let's keep going. Let's see if we get to it.
Right, I want to get to that. We've been going almost 2 hours, so I don't want to hold you too late, but I want to get to the proof of the Satanists.
Well, we have 6 minutes left. Let's do it. We can do it.
Okay, I believe
ridiculous. We are watching evil manifest itself almost every second these days, and it isn't like there isn't any consequence. Look at our VAERS data. Let's go back to that. As of today, over 4,000 deaths reported, and they're still 3 months behind in reporting. And you and I both know that only represents 1%. 1% of the death.
Getting that.
That doesn't even account for the over 200,000 people that have listed as vax injured, and that still only represents 1%. And
he's saying 200,000 is 1%, which means of vaccine injured. 200,000 is 1%, which means the real number is 20 million. Right, 20 million. Out of the country, you've got about 60% has gotten at least one shot, give or take about 60%. So you've got 320 million. 50% of that is 160 million. So you've got. So think about this. Out of 100, 170, 180 million people who've got 190 million people who've gotten one shot, right? 20 million of those people have been injured directly because of that. That's the claim he's making. And also nobody is talking about this story.
No, that's not real.
You need to, like, that doesn't even pass like the basic, like, does this make sense? That doesn't do it. Sorry. No, just no.
And there is crickets from our leadership in this nation that are primarily men. Sickening. It's a statement of the moral bankruptcy of our nation right now.
Well, it's really true, Scott. And I really feel strongly about everything you just said. I'm in total agreement with you, as that if the men would have stood up and gone to the school boards and said, this isn't happening with our kids, in terms of the masks and the distancing and all that stuff. But the men seem to be the ones who kind of just roll over. Like you said, it's the women, it's the mama bears that are going out, because they're the ones who've been fighting for their kids for, first of all, forever. But secondly, since the 80s, when we really started to see the big uptick of the autistic kids, we're
doing that.
Jump into that.
We're doing that.
We're going to jump into that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Okay. So what this is getting towards, everybody, is vaccines cause autism, which they don't. They don't. That's the guy who came up with that was a fraud who was trying to sell a competing vaccine.
Yep. He lost his medical license over that.
Lost his medical license over that because it was fraudulent. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see where this goes.
It was the moms who stood in the gap for those kids to try to recover their kids. Upwards of 80% or higher of marriages of vaccine injured children end in divorce. Why? Because it wasn't convenient anymore. I mean, you couldn't accept responsibility that you allowed the pharmacia to inject your child, and now you have a train wreck of a child. So now you have to abandon that child and leave it for single moms to try to struggle through to make it be happening.
Whoa.
What the hell was that?
Whoa. So I know it is true that the divorce rate of families with either a severely disabled child or God forbid the child dies, the divorce rate in those instances are incredibly high. And that's, let's have a little compassion there for the stress put on those families. Right. And to
stress, trauma,
trauma, death,
financial stress. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of aspects to that are going and all of those things individually are going to increase the chance of separation. So you put them all together. Yeah.
So let's and it's not, I don't, and she jumped straight to, the guy left. It was his decision to end, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which is that's very much not fair to the many single fathers that I know who are raising disabled children, right, or children with disabilities. So let's not, that narrative is insane. And then we're just gonna call all children with disabilities vaccine injuries? No.
We're going to say they're all vaccine injuries. And then I think the specific word she used to describe children with disabilities was train wreck, which that's
is terrible.
Not okay.
These are human beings.
Right.
Right. And we did, so we hit an ableism there. So that's... Mm-hmm. That's great.
People keeping, get your other bingo card out, everybody. We have multiple bingo cards going.
Yeah.
Man, can I say that I think Dr. Tenpenny is a train wreck? This is really bad. This is really bad. This was it at some point within the last 5 minutes or so of this, it stopped being funny and started just being not funny anymore.
Yeah, well, we went from they're just claiming crazy things to, I am starting to see what you actually think about people, and that, what you how you actually view the world, and that's a terrifying funhouse of crazy mirrors, right? Yeah. By funhouse, I meant the scary one at the carnival with the weird mirrors. Not that this is fun. That's
Thank you for filling in that reference for the children here who have never experienced such a thing.
Yeah.
For those of you
Yeah,
viewing
yeah.
who don't know what a
Well, I
fun
realized
house
I threw
is,
out the word fun real
it's not what it
cavalierly
is.
there.
It's actually terrifying.
They're very
It's like
scary.
literally this. It's so terrifying. It's often the scene of the climax of like psychological thriller / horror things, right? The funhouse mirrors. Yeah. So just actually terrifying.
This whole issue, I think, is a really important issue about the character and the strength of men is really important. And it kind of reflects back on the issue at the church, too, that how many of the churches say, well, we have to follow our leaders. If the governor says we have to close our doors, we have to do that. Because look, here's the verses in the Bible that say it. They forget that the leaders from those days were supposed to be chosen by God and follow God's will for the people. And that's why you obeyed them, not just because they were elected by some
So we're
fake
gonna go with
by some
Caesar.
fake
The Roman
election
Emperor
process.
Caesar was chosen by God to take care of the Christians. That's what we're gonna go with. That's the claim she just made. Okay, sorry, nope. That's insane.
Yeah. That's
Sorry. God.
Process that is broken and is never going to be fixed, at least not in the way that it's going right now. So what do you think that see, we've had some conversations too about when Christians finally come to the perspective of, wow, I didn't know this. I mean, I didn't know this. I mean, early on, I mean, I was one of the first people that got the shot when they first came out with this. And since that time, which would have been December of 2020 for Moderna and Pfizer, and about February for the Johnson & Johnson shot, here we are midsummer.
Johnson & Johnson shot, not mRNA, different thing. I want to know, does it still grant access to your DNA? Does it still allow them to remotely update your firmware? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a different thing. Just saying. So everyone knows. Not the same thing.
Summer of 2021, and now people look backward in time and say, wow, all these things the 5 doctors have put out that I've been talking about in my over 400 interviews and all of the powerful interviews you do on Bards FM. I mean, 5 podcasts a day to educate people and to train them about in the way that they should go and be spiritually strong. Those people now suddenly say, wow, I wish I'd have known that. Is there anything that I can do about it? Well, from a physical perspective, a medical perspective, right now, there isn't. I mean, there isn't any extraction tool that's going to go into your DNA and go, oh, yeah, that piece, we'll pull that one out. We know.
No, actually, it's literally what CRISPR does. We don't do it in humans, but like it does literally do that. You can give it a target sequence and it'll be like, and it'll get rid of that. But we don't do that in humans yet, but probably within 5 or 10 years we will. But
no one has enough to say. The Dalai Lama does not have enough to say to fill 5 podcasts a day.
I can think of a few people on the internet that do that.
Right.
Not that they have enough
that
to
much to
say.
say.
Right.
Yeah. We know what that one is. But from a spiritual perspective, prayer has always been the cornerstone, and forgiveness is what God is all about. So what do you think? What are your thoughts about when people suddenly have this regret because they've learned something different that they didn't know before?
Well, this gets back to accountability. You can't just go about saying, well, I made a mistake and everything's going to be cool because I was saved. There has to be a process of coming back to Christ. And you're going to have to repent in a deep way with your soul, with honesty, with your heart, and accept accountability. I think this is the biggest issue before God. We don't.
This is the biggest issue before God. Not
murder,
poverty,
not sexual abuse within the church.
No.
This
vaccination,
biggest issue.
Vaccination. Also,
Great.
Congratulations on starting a discussion in the chat over who does and does not count as Roman emperor. So appreciate that.
Fair. Team, my education in history, I took a lot of math classes, not a lot of history classes.
I just want to appreciate the fact that
that seems like a more fun conversation than the one we're
the
listening
audience
to.
is running with this of like, well, you know, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I got in on it because History of Rome podcast, highly recommended.
Ooh.
Great podcast. Same
So-
person is doing another podcast now, also excellent.
So my husband, his like education, his bachelor's is in history, and so he's often baffled by the things I don't know, because he's like, how you can do like XYZ math thing, but you don't know about this battle in Spain in the 17th.
This
Like, no, I really
random
don't.
thing that happened 1,000 years ago. No.
Yeah, I really don't.
No.
And then he just like knows the names and dates of all these like people and battles, and I'm like, how does that stay in your brain? And then he's like, how do you do calculus? I'm like, fair.
That's same. Yeah, that's the. Yeah, I
Ooh.
was this close. Actually, never mind. It's not a topic for this thing, but I have something in common with Rob Carter, and it has to do with majors in college. I was almost a history major.
Okay.
I really like history. I love history. All right, let's keep going with this awfulness. We have 3 minutes left.
Yeah, because this is
Don't
I can't
use
do a
that
second
word.
part of this.
We absolutely don't use that word of accountability in our culture anymore.
Sure,
And
we
yet
do.
it is principled how we have to live with Christ. You can't live a life of half-truth. You have to look within your heart. And if you're going to realize you've made the mistake, then yeah, you need to return to God and you need to pray. And you need to pray for healing. God can heal all things. We know that. And there's no limit to what God can heal. What we can't guarantee is your body's going to be healed. But the real issue here is your soul going to be healed? You've made a violation here. You've walked away, and it's not. And so this is where people are struggling, I think. That's what I'm hearing I get from my audience, is that, yes, but God accepts us. We always have salvation. Okay, that's fine. I got it. Yes, you've accepted Christ in your heart. That doesn't take away your responsibility on a daily basis and your accountability to live through Christ and to the Father. And to do.
Can I just say that so I should note that my understanding of like Christian doctrine is not extensive and is way out of practice because lapsed Catholic over here
Gotcha.
You know, got confirmed, and then it was like, well, thanks for all that. See you later. But my understanding is that what he is describing here is a very, very day-to-day, I don't know if the right term is works, but like it is a very in the minute, like you constantly have to be working to be saved, not just like I accept Jesus Christ as my savior,
right?
Therefore I'm good, right? There's ongoing stuff you need to do,
right? So works versus
like,
grace.
you have to put in the tenure packet, right? You have to constantly be re-upping.
Yeah.
Is what's going on here, and that seems to me a correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that is a not mainstream view.
So it's a little tricky, right? Because it's so yeah, because the general, this goes back to like Saint Augustine, right? Like, is salvation by grace, not through works, right? That's sort of that's yeah, you like it's where there's gray, right? Is okay, so if you were baptized, right, as a baby, right, or whatever have you, you were baptized as a kid, and then you go on and murder someone, right? Like, are you like still saved? Is it possible to lose your salvation? Does it matter how you behave? Right. And so I would say, right, like, so for me, again, and this is like me personally, is I think it certainly matters how you act in the here and now. You know, I think it matters a whole lot how you treat your neighbor. If we kind of look at like Jesus' teachings, sorry, not to get all theological, this is not a theology thing, but like, I think God cares more about how I treat my neighbor than like what I specifically believe, you know?
Right.
And that's, so what's confusing to me here is like, one, this whole little rant of his 100% belongs on self-aware wolves, right? Of you're almost there. You're almost to realizing that you've done harm to people and need to be held accountable for that and need to reckon and wrestle with that, right? That's a thing that you're going to need to deal with at some point, right? That you have done harm to people. And maybe there can be reconciliation between you and those folks, and maybe not, you know? But like, I don't know, I'm rambly. Yeah, this whole thing that's like, it's very confusing to me, the thought that like the real sin here is like, you got a vaccine and that is so sinful that we need to build up for you like a path of reconciliation with like the church and Christ, right?
Yeah,
that would be like,
what are we
all right,
doing?
you stole money from the church, right? That doesn't mean that there isn't a path of reconciliation for you to be a part of this church again, but like, there's going to be boundaries. You're not going to be in charge of money anymore, right? You're going to have to deal with the fact that you've harmed people, right? Like, so like, he's talking about that, right? That kind of idea of that, like, yeah, like you're saved by grace, but you've harmed these folks, right? You've done harm, and there's consequences to those actions. Anyway, but
Let's do it.
self-aware. Well, let's finish
To
this.
that,
Let's just
it
finish
is
this.
a place that we must absolutely come back and humble ourselves before him.
So Scott, thank you so much for joining me here today. You know, on the
Made
inaugural
it.
launch of the Tenpenny Files with Dr. T. And one of the most
What was the
important
satanic
things
goal?
about me
That was, I think that sounds like she's wrapping up. So there's no satanic, there was no satanic.
I was promised the satanic goal.
Let's keep
What
going. Let's
is
see.
it?
Let's just see.
following you and listening to all your things is it's super from your heart, powerful prayers that you always put forth at the end of all of your broadcasts. So as we're closing out on our broadcast here today for our first launch, I want to tell everybody where they can follow you on Bards FM, which is like everywhere. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple Play, it's on Podbean, it's like everywhere that they can follow your broadcasts. But as we close out, would you please lead us in closing prayer where we can go forward?
Nope. Okay, we're done. Thanks, everybody.
Oh God, Dan, are you alive? Did we make it? Is this a dream?
Man, that was rough. That was
so rough.
That was bad. That was 25 minutes. That was bad. That was so. It's a satanic goal of something, but also there was some sexism, some homophobia, some ableism. Man, that was rough.
Some straight up what's the Christian nationalism? Yeah, there was a lot of that.
There was some Christian nationalism in there. Yep. Man, that was rough, everybody. That's way down the that was way down the rabbit hole. So we normally, just to give everyone a little perspective, we normally play in, we dive into the pseudoscience, and we're, we don't just hang out at the continental shelf. We get into it. We're in the open ocean. But that was some like trench stuff going on there. That was way down there. Oh man.
That was bad. Like, I don't think I can handle reviewing her again.
If that is representative, then that is. There was not even the attempt to like support the assertions, where normally, even with the worst pseudoscience, there is, hey everybody, here's what I'm starting with. Here's why you should accept that. And then I'm going to make an argument, right? And each step in that process is normally flawed in some way, but there is a logical flow to it. In here, dude, none of that. It was just assertion, bonker, like top to bottom. That was
right. That's even like, okay, so bottom of the barrel young earth creationism arguments, right, kind of comes from like Matt Powell, right? And I've responded to him a few times. But he will at least like say something that you can coherently rebut, right? Like the second law of thermodynamics says that he misquotes it all the time, you know, and so then he says that incorrectly, which means that the universe is
That's not what that
always
means.
going to become more
Yeah.
chaotic. I can't even make myself say it incorrectly the way he does.
Right, but you can
But, like,
take that.
You can
And
okay,
respond.
so cool. That's not what the second law of thermodynamics is. This is what the second law of thermodynamics actually is, and this is what it means, and blah blah blah, and then we can move forward. But she
Yeah.
there were no arguments, right?
Yeah.
Very rarely was a scientific claim, like a specific claim that like we could rebut brought
It can
up.
change your DNA.
Right.
That's probably it.
That was about it.
Yeah.
Other than like masks don't work, like that's not
Right.
a claim. That doesn't mean anything, you know. Or she didn't even say that. She said the myth of the mask. Like that's not. That's what are you supposed to do with that? Like how are we supposed to have like a conversation?
We're not.
We're not. This is
It
just
is.
rhetoric.
I think. Right. I think we need to recognize that it's not designed to be persuasive. It is designed to reinforce, and in that regard, it's very similar to a lot of the creation science we talk about. That it's not designed to persuade you and me. It's designed to reinforce it for the people who are either already partially down that slope, and it's to pull them down more, or it's to get the people who are kind of like looking over the edge, like, what's down there? It's like, well, let me tell you, right? But the people who are like holding ladders over here, like, hey, come on up over here. This is where you don't die from COVID. Like those people are not the targets.
Yeah. No, that's not what that's for. So I super appreciate you hanging out this late. This is the longest I've done a live stream.
I'm happy to share this experience with you.
Yeah, because there was no way we were going to do a part 2. We had to get done with it. No.
No, we got an hour into that and we were like, no, we both were like, we are doing this tonight.
Pushing
we are never
through,
touching that
and I'm
website
never
again.
touching this again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man, thanks everybody for sticking that out with us.
Yeah, super appreciate you, audience folks. That was a rough one. So I appreciate you guys in chat keeping us sane, reeling me back in when I was losing my mind. So let's see. On my channel, Random Shills, there'll be a video out tomorrow. Scientists you should have heard of will go out tomorrow. I think it's going to be Dr. Charles Drew, a very cool doctor. Did stuff with discovered how to preserve blood for blood transfusions.
That's super cool.
Yeah,
I actually haven't heard of that one so far. In that whole series, I've recognized the people, but that I actually don't know that one. That's so cool. Yeah,
he was a very cool African American man. Did a lot of very cool work. So Dan, what do you got coming up?
Well, first thing I have coming up is my dog is outside the door right there, barking to get in, so I have to let him join us.
Budgie, I like dogs.
Buddy. Yeah, no, he's great. He just he could hear me and did not want to be. Come here, you.
Well, who would want to be alone?
Come here. Who's gonna
Hi, buddy.
Join us for the end there? Here we go. Hey, little buddy. This is Bean, everybody.
Hi,
this
Bean.
is Bean, and here we go. Let's say hi. Yeah, there's Bean. So what do I have coming up? I don't have anything specific that's new content specifically. I have tomorrow in the afternoon, it's at noon actually, I think, I am premiering a rebroadcast of my chat with Sal Cordova from last week, as he co-authored a book chapter on a concept called fitness maximization with some other creation scientists, John Sanford being one of them, of genetic entropy fame. And so we chatted for about an hour and a half last week about that over on his channel, Evidence and Reasons, and I'm going to rebroadcast that tomorrow on my channel. If you didn't watch that, it was a really fun conversation. We just kind of nerd out about population genetics.
Excellent.
I got some problems with that book chapter. I got a lot of problems with that book chapter. We went through some of them. We didn't cover all of them by any means. So we're actually going to do more. He's going to come on me. We're going to go back. We're going to go back and forth talking about this stuff some more, because it's actually really cool. It's something that I always want to happen, that I always tell creation scientists to do, which is like publish your work for real, like in non-creationist venues. And so they did. They published a book chapter, and it's a reference book on math. It's a math reference book,
Oh,
basically,
okay.
in the arts and sciences.
Cool.
And so it's got a lot of population genetics. A lot of it is wrong. So we talked about it, and it was fun. That's all I got coming up. Other than that, my release schedule, as always, is highly sporadic. Kind of depends on if anyone says anything dumb about population genetics, then I'll respond to it.
Excellent. Well, awesome. Well, team, Dan's channel is linked in the description. If you are not subscribed, you should. Oh, okay. And then I think we'll say goodnight to Dean. And I'll see everybody soon. Thank you so much for hanging out. Night, team.
Thank you.